Welcome to the Daily Devo. My name is Diana. Today we are talking about what's in your hand. We are looking at different questions that God himself asked in the Old Testament. And each of these questions they're going to show us something about God's character and how we can walk with God. Today's question, it's from Exodus chapter 4, verse 2. And it says, "Then the Lord said to him, 'What is that in your hand?' 'A staff,' he replied." What is that in your hand? That's today's question. Well, at this time in history, when God asked that particular question, his people were held captive in the country of Egypt. And God said this to Moses in Exodus 2, verses 7 or so. He said, "I have indeed seen the misery of my people." This is God speaking in Egypt. "I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey," and it goes on. Then God says to Moses, this man of God who was out in the wilderness, he says, "Moses, go, I am sending you." And at this, Moses, taking it all in, he responds back to God and he's like, who am I that I should go? Can you relate to that moment? Well, Moses, he was far off in the field. Remember, he had run away from his home. He had taken the life of a slave owner and he left the life of the city for that of the rural shepherds. And he was asking God, who am I to go up against powerful Pharaoh back there, the ruler of the land? Well, Moses and God, they continue to have a conversation, and that brings us to today's verse. Moses again asks God, "What if they don't believe me?" Then the Lord said to him, "What is that in your hand?" God knows all that you and I and our neighbors have and all that we lack. He knows the capacity that each one of us has, as well as the tendencies and the shortcomings. And here, God was asking Moses, "Moses, what do you already have? What do you already have in your hands?" He was turning his attention there rather than all that he lacked. And Moses, he responds by saying, "Well, God, I literally have a staff in my hand." And then God asks him to throw it on the ground, transforms it, and more. The story unfolds in Exodus 4. Check it out. But the staff, it was just a simple shepherd's staff. He was taking care of the sheep. That's what was in Moses' hand. It's pretty ordinary. Yet this same staff, when it was offered and surrendered to God, became a tool that God used to work his wonders and his power through the rest of Exodus. A question for us today is, have you drifted in belief that you need more than you currently have? Have you drifted in your thinking to think mostly about what you lack? What if today we listen to the question that God asked Moses when he said, "What is in your hand?" What if we surrender what we do have to God again today? What if we start with what we already have? This might help us. One retired woman, she wasn't able to go out and be active in serving in her community like she used to almost every day. She had a health incident that essentially kept her homebound and limited. Yet her heart still wanted to serve and bless her neighbors. So she asked God, "God, what can I possibly do from right here, stuck at home with my new restrictions?" Well, she looked around and she realized she had some sewing skills. And so she started making blankets to give away to those in need. What if we did that? What if today we look for what we already have? And of course, the list of what we don't have, we know it's ever close and it's right at the top of mind. We don't have time or help, or we don't have brilliance in that area. We don't have resources. We don't have confidence. But what do you have? Do you have 5 minutes of time? Do you have space for one more? Do you have an idea? Do you have wisdom to share? Do you have a group of 1 or 4 that you could start with? What do you already have? And how might God be inviting you to trust him with that? Think on these things, and let's see and pay attention to the question that God asked Moses. What is that in your hand? We'll see you next time.